Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Welcome again to SoBigData Digital Coffee, a shot of big data into innovation, entrepreneurship, ethics, and impact. I am Giulio Ferrigno, Senior Assistant Professor of Innovation Management at Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna, and I'm very happy to introduce and moderate this webinar together with my wonderful colleague, Maria Giulia Garcea. Before we start, let me express my gratitude to SoBigData Research Infrastructure for giving us the possibility to organize this. More importantly, I want to thank you all for attending this event. We received more than 380 subscriptions to our webinars so far. That's an incredible number. And actually, this is the third episode of this journey. In the previous episodes, we discussed how big data can affect business transformation and also how it's possible to turn data into successful innovations. Today, we will talk about another important issue. We will talk about data ethics. This topic is especially important if we consider the AI Act just approved 1 month ago. But before we start, let me remind you the format. Let me do so just for those of you who are participating in our webinars for the first time. In every webinar, we always try to involve 3 different speakers who are experts about the topic we discuss. And we try to seek as much as possible gender balance, but also representativeness of both academic and industrial worlds. The webinars are very interactive. Each speaker has just 10 minutes to give a presentation. And at the end of the 3 presentations, we will have about 15-20 minutes for a Q&A session. Therefore, if you have any questions, please write them in the chat. Like the previous episodes, at the end of this webinar, we will read these questions at the end of the webinar, and these questions will be answered by our speakers. Let me also remind you that this session is also recorded on the YouTube channel of SoBigData. Therefore, you can also follow this session there, and in case you miss any part of the webinar, you can always watch the recorded video whenever you like. Moreover, let me remind you that at the end of the webinars, you will receive, as promised, a digital copy of the SoBigData magazine for free. Having explained the format, let me focus again about the aim of the webinars and the speakers. So why are we doing this? Well, we want to spread some knowledge about big data by focusing the attention on very hot topics and by involving companies, academics, data scientists, or even policy makers. And last time we focused on data-driven innovation. However, today we must ensure that the benefits of data-driven innovation are equally distributed and that no one is left behind in the march toward progress. Therefore, we will try to understand data ethics. We live in a digital area where data should be treated ethically and responsibly. Data ethics is not just about compliance with laws and regulations, but goes far beyond. It concerns how we use data, how we share data, how we analyze data to influence decisions and behaviors. Data ethics thus requires critical reflection on fundamental issues such as privacy, transparency, and even fairness. As such, data ethics is an essential element that allows the power of data to be used for the common good. We must commit to treating data with respect, responsibility, and integrity, and just for have a better world for everyone. So this is why we are focusing on big data ethics. But to better understand this issue, Today, we have involved three amazing and outstanding, I would say, speakers today. We involved Denise Amram to give you a point of view of a researcher in law. Juan Durán to give you another research perspective point of view, and also Andrea Zedda to give you the company perspective. Thanks, Denise, Juan, and Andrea for being with us today. Now it's time to go with the first presentation. I am very, very happy to introduce to you the first outstanding speakers of today, Denise Amram. Denise Amram is assistant professor of comparative private law at Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna. She actually leads the policy unit in the SoBigData PPP research infrastructure. Denise, thanks for being with us today. Today, actually, so we are talking about data ethics. Could you please summarize the key elements of the European data strategy regarding data ethics? Moreover, as anticipated, the AI Data Act has been approved just 1 month ago. But can you tell us what are the most important aspects of the AI Data Act we should be aware about?
Thank you, Giulio, for this kind introduction, and thank you for your questions. And if I have to answer to all of them in 10 minutes, it's a bit difficult as a challenge, but I try just to give you some pills, we can say, in order to frame in these fantastic initiatives on data ethics, how to deal with this complex and fragmented legal framework in order to be able to share data, to analyze data, and to work with data in a responsible way. So this will be my approach in this short presentation. Well, what is to answer the first question, what is the EU data strategy? We refer to the EU data strategy on all the initiatives that the EU Commission approved and enacted on data to provide a regulatory framework for data-driven development of services and products, starting from the GDPR, that is the well-known and the first one that refers to personal data protection, that has repealed a former directive of the latest age of the 1990s, and going through the concept of boosting data economy through a responsible data sharing. Data shall be available, shall be findable, shall be interoperable in order to be analyzed and processed by different technologies. And this is the very first pillar of the EU data strategies. Of course, we need some requirements in order to protect fundamental rights, in order to protect human beings as individuals and as groups. For this reason, all the legislative initiatives have as a main premises the protection and the requirements that are enacted in the previous legislative initiatives. So the GDPR is the first one that is protecting personal data, that is protecting privacy, that is protecting private life, but that also is enabling data that once data flows that once are protected, they can flow and then shall flow, and there is this favor to boost data sharing that then is translated into, for example, the free flow regulation, by which if data are non-personal and all the compliance activity for personal data are implemented, then data shall be as open as possible. Then we need to provide the governance. Who can provide services of intermediation of data, who can be the people and the organization and the companies, therefore, that can give this kind of services, also to engage bottom-up approach with the data altruism. That is the aim of the Data Governance Act, and so on. Then we have to frame everything in a concept of a market. What happens in terms of relationships between companies? What happens in terms of business practices? And this is the purposes of the Digital Service Act on the one side and the Digital Markets Act on the other side. And these are new regulations that have been enacted the last year and enter into force in the last months. Then we have the Data Act, and that tries to not only enable data sharing, but also to try to identify an asset, to give value, an economic value to data. And so this is another step forward to boost the data economy. And then we have some proposals of data in sectoral environments, like the European Health Data Space, that refers to how to boost data sharing in for clinical purposes, for clinical research, in order to advance in that field, where we know with the COVID pandemic experience that the more data we share, the more information we can analyze, and the more and services can be then developed according to the needs of geographical needs, sectoral needs, kind of in this framework. The relevant initiatives are putting their attention into providing a mechanism in order to have data as open as possible and as close as necessary on the one side, providing robust and trustworthy infrastructures, and that is what we are doing with the SoBigData project. And then also to identify standards, legal standards combined with technical standards, in order to boost what? Interoperability and portability, how to share data flows and make them readable by different mechanisms. And in this kind of different means of processing data, we have the AI, different also levels of AI. So we have the risks of opportunities stemmed by automated decision making. Then we have the challenges of a generative AI, and so we need other challenges and frameworks to identify requirements and conditions. What does it mean to be responsible? What does it mean to be responsible in terms of innovation? Well, responsible, it comes from Latin respondere. It means to provide answers, justifications, solutions if something goes wrong. So to pay compensation if something goes wrong, okay? And it is very close to the legal paradigm of liability. But, and we know that it is also better to prevent than to compensate. So the idea and all these EU legislative initiatives are based on a risk-based approach, that prevent is better than to compensate. So we need regulatory frameworks that are allocating roles and responsibilities in order to identify tasks and risks, in order to avoid to be in the conditions of respondere, in order to avoid to pay damages. And this system is under the hat that is called accountability, to provide evidence to be responsible in a compliant approach during the whole life cycle of the data collection, analysis, publication, use, reuse, and so on. This is the explanation of what we call the risk-based approach applied by design, by since the very beginning, we design the life cycle of data, and by default, before putting our digital services and products into the market. So this means, in practice, to detect risks that may expose the compromission of fundamental rights, so to expose people to vulnerabilities as individuals, but also as groups belonging to given characteristics, because big data analysis are classifying us, are classifying societies. So we need to identify technical and organizational measures in order to mitigate those risks that we perceived, and then to implement this kind of safeguards that case by case we are analyzing and identifying. And then we need to verify whether or not these kind of safeguards are efficient and monitor the life cycle in order to update the safeguards and maintain the responsible approach. So from this perspective, what are and these are the common features of the EU data strategies initiatives and the AI Act that has been recently approved. But for example, we do not have still the published text, since it has been just approved by the EU Parliament. And what are these common features? Is to setting roles within the identification of services and products in order to establish a governance of data flows. And this means for the different initiatives to provide and identify who is the data controller, who is the data processor, who is the manufacturer, for example, or the AI deployer, the service provider, the intermediary, and so on. Setting the conditions and the requirements to process data according to their natures, if they are personal, not personal, if they are personal, if they are sensitive or not sensitive, to analyze and identify risks considering the means of data processing, if they are manual, automated decision-making, generative AI, what is the control of the human beings in terms of data processing in input and output. The purposes. Are we in the field of public services? Are we in the field of private services? And how to put all these kind of dimension in the market in terms of business cases. This means to set boundaries in order to have always the human-centric perspective, considering not only to boost individual fundamental rights, but also to identify vulnerable groups and to try to address by design and by default a responsible approach towards possible vulnerable groups that are our users of our services and products. They can be children, they can be patients, they can be migrants, they can be just users with low digital education, even if they are rich white men and businessmen. They can have a lack of digital education, and this is a vulnerability that cannot be exploited. So this is a way, and to do it in the organizational system of the business shall be introduced checks and balances in order to verify case by case what to do and what to not to do. So here a short checklist on do's and don'ts in order to try to address the ethical legal issues within these complex and fragmented with different levels of enforcement of legislative initiatives. On the one side, look at the big picture. Who are the real recipients of your services and product, and consider their best interests. Then map any step in order to also simplify the organizational processes, because if you are mapping the data processing activities, you are mapping also your workflow. And this makes you to introduce also a more simplified mechanism to boost the cost and the efficiency of the staff that are working on them, and provide and have an interdisciplinary and specialistic approach, because it is very, very, everything is new and everything needs a full understanding. What to do not to do, well, do's and don'ts. Don'ts, don't consider compliance as an enemy. It's not an enemy, it's a cultural process, and we are all involved in it. It's for our sons, it is for our grandsons and granddaughters. Do not underestimating time, cost, and cross-sectoral requirements and conditions. This is essential. It takes time, it takes cost, but we need to do it. And do not be overconfident on self-training on the web. Take the chance to have this kind of coffees organized under the SoBigData research infrastructure, because it's a way also to share best practices and to try to co-create best solutions. I think the time it's over, and I'm very grateful for your attention, and please do not hesitate to ask me questions in the question time. Thank you.
What an incredible presentation, Denise. Thanks for distilling pills on EU strategy and data strategy and AI Data Act. Now, let's see another point of view. Let's say another point of view of still research, but beyond the law universe. I'm happy to introduce to you all Juan Durán. Juan Durán is assistant professor in ethics of technology at TU Delft. His research is focused on the philosophy of science and technology, the philosophy of computer science, and the history of science and technology, and also the ethics of technology. He's also published a book on about computer simulations you can find on Springer. Juan, thanks again for being with us today. We discussed the European data strategy about data ethics and also the AI Data Act. However, different sources of bias may always emerge. My question for you is, where can bias actually emerge? And what are the value concerns we should be aware about when we talk about big data?
Okay, good afternoon, morning, and good night, I suppose, to everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation, Giulio and Michaela. I really appreciate being here. So yes, this is an excellent question, Giulio, actually, and let me try to put a little bit of a context to it, and let me talk about three sources of ethics of AI. So three ways by which we can approach to the problem of ethics of the AI. The first one is usually called the unfair outcomes, and as I will show you in a minute, this is where bias, your question, has a lot of finds a lot of answers. But then we also have to look about transformative effects, something that sometimes we do not really look into, but that AI is having AI, big data, and the new technologies. Any automated decision system, let's say, is having enormous impact in our lives. And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about traceability, linking back to what Denise was talking about. So very briefly, because I don't want to go over too much time either, I'm going to talk about like the unfair outcomes. What do we mean by this? Well, essentially here has anything to do with what we typically call responsible AI, whether it's responsible use, responsible development, responsible maintenance. Sometimes we don't think much about maintenance of these systems, but these systems also require a lot of maintenance, and that maintenance introduces changes in the systems that might need to be looked into, of course. You were asking about bias. Well, the sources of bias are several. We can think about sources of bias that are in the institutions or in the designers in the collection of the data. So prior to the use of technology, the bias can be in the technology, and the bias can emerge after the technology. I'm not going to go into all forms of biases, But this is pretty much what unfair outcomes amounts to. This is the classic example. Many of you probably already know the case of machine bias. This is being used in the US. And as you can anticipate, the example, white people get significantly less flagged as potential potentially committing a crime again. So this is a case of recidivism. Essentially, the system tries to rank people based on prior cases, prior convictions, whether they should be left to free, back to their home, let's say, waiting for trial, or they should be incarcerated until trial. The reason is that in the US, at least, the number of incarcerations has grown exponentially, and you cannot just simply keep building jails, right? Prisons. So they're using this technology, but the kind of data that they use is obviously police arrest, and police in the US, and as in many other places. I've been talking to judges here in the Netherlands, and pretty much everyone admits that in one way or another we are biased, and I'm going to get back to that point by the end of the talk, and we simply are. In the US, is pretty obscene, actually, the ways in which police can be biased against certain minorities, certain groups, certain races. So that's the particular case. So this amounts to what I want to say about unfair outcomes. We can be using technology and amounting to an actually unfair outcome. In the case of Bernard Parker, he was flagged as a high risk, even though that he was resisting an arrest without violence, and there were not subsequent offenses, right? So these kind of things needs to be at the center of any serious development of technology, whether it is governmental, whether it is institutional, whether it is, companies. Now, transformative effect, and by the way, cases about privacy that we also talk about a lot about privacy in ethics also falls under the umbrella of unfair outcomes. Transformative effects has somehow less publicity, but is, to my mind, is a major problem that we have right now, and part of it is because sometimes we don't see how much AI technology is actually changing the ways that we relate to work, changing the way that we relate to each other. When you think about work, you think about whether an AI technology is going to replace me as a worker, but sometimes we don't see how they affect our psychology, they affect our well-being, they affect the way that we usually relate with others. This is an example of Uber, how by design they sort of push the driver's button. So they force the drivers to take up more and more rides, even though that they are absolutely exhausted. If you ever taken a cab in your life and you have the chance to talk to a taxi driver, even though that they drive for hours without end, they do have their moment where they all get together in a small restaurant, a small coffee, and they take that break, and they have their coffee, and they decide when to go back to work. In this particular case, the algorithm is pushing the drivers to take up the next ride, or otherwise they will be punished. Netflix is another example. Nobody's saying that we should not have this technology, of course, but it's another example of how the algorithm is shaping our entertainment taste, so to speak. Finally, and I'm going to be very, very brief about this has to do with traceability. Essentially, the question that is an ethical question, but it's also a legal question, is how can we trace back the responsibility of the algorithm? So when we have this kind of technology, that self-autonomous driver, vehicle, excuse me, the question is, who is responsible in case of an accident. We know cases that unfortunately a person died because of this, and this is a very important question that is hard to find an answer to, and this is usually called the accountability gap, and you have issues about causality. It is very hard to trace back the causality to an individual. Usually, if I shoot someone, the causality of being the shooter can be traced back to me. But in the case of the algorithm, it's a little bit more difficult to find that. One of the solutions is to give legal personhood to algorithms, but this will trigger a range of problems. The other problem is justice. Usually, if you commit a crime, you're going to be brought into justice. But what are you bringing into justice? The algorithm? It doesn't feel like and of course compensation. When you commit a crime, you have to compensate somehow the victims, whether by you giving your freedom, so you're being incarcerated, or some kind of monetary compensation. The only thing that this is the end of my talk. I hope that I didn't talk too much. The only thing that I want to do is circle back extremely quickly to your questions about bias. This is an example of the cognitive bias. So first, we need to know that not all biases are bad biases. We need to be biased, otherwise we cannot read all the books, or play all the video games, or watch all the movies, or have all the friends. It's just as simple as that. Now, of course, there are cases in which bias discriminate, affect minorities, and those are the important cases of bias. That's point number one. So I don't want to give a bad publicity to bias in general. And the second important point to me is that we cannot get rid of bias. So when someone says something like, "This is a bias-free algorithm," I become extremely skeptical about that. I think that what we need to do is accept that we have bias. We accept that those algorithms are somehow a reflection of ourselves, and insofar we do that, we can create mechanisms to deal with this bias, to counteract those biases. Yes. So yes. Okay. Well, on that note, I'm going to leave it, because I just want to mention the bias cortex, because the codex, because you mentioned bias in your question. But that would be pretty much everything on my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot, Juan. Actually, I'm very impressed by your speech, because even though you are a researcher, so you work in academia, you have tried to make as much practical as possible your speech, leading everyone to understand this very important but also difficult issue to understand. So thanks again. Now, let's see another point of view. The point of view of company. I am very happy to introduce to you Andrea Zedda. Andrea Zedda is the founding partner of Kode. Is an expert in the field of demosocial research, specializing in processing, data treatment, spatial analysis, data visualization and reporting, and is very active in studying and also practically applying open data and open government issues. Andrea, thanks a lot for being with us today. Data ethics give us guiding principles for the responsible collection of open data, for the sharing of open data, for utilizing open data. But from a company perspective, how can open data be actually leveraged in a way that adheres to the data ethics frameworks? Please tell us how many good things you are doing in your company, Kode.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to represent Kode. That it's one company that I co-founded more than 10 years ago. Excuse me, I present the slides. I ask if you see the slides. It's okay. Okay. Kode, it's a company that is based mainly in Pisa, but also in Cagliari. And we have a seniority that it's more than 10 years old, 12 years of experience in this field of artificial intelligence. And we are a small company with a team of 20 persons. It's a team not all composed by technicians, but it's very multidisciplinary. And there is more than 13 different universities degrees, from psychology to political science. So it's not only a technical background. And we work in different fields, as you can see here, mainly in industry, but also in geospatial and mobility, cheminformatics, and sport analytics. And we do a lot of different projects because we are mainly a consultancy company. Even we develop and offer some products. But the things that unify this different type of project are the techniques that we use to develop our solutions. That mainly everything that about artificial intelligence, from predictive modeling to deep learning, machine learning, and geospatial analysis. All our solutions are end-to-end solutions, so they start from a back-end backbone to front-end UI that users can use to make and use our solutions. But I'm here to talk about something that for me it's very important. It's about small, medium enterprises in Europe, and how these small, medium enterprises are doing the digital transitions, and how they can use data to evolve and to become more bigger. And as you can see here, small and medium enterprise are by definition companies that are not so big, but can have even 250 employees, and they must have one annual turnover that is less than 50 millions. And I think they are a lifeblood of the European company, because they comprise 99% of our businesses in the EU and employ like around 85 million individuals. So they are pivotal in driving innovation, technological adoption, and economic diversification. In this ecosystem, there are the high-tech and digital SME that they are the forefront for Europe economic dynamism, and they can shape the future with the innovative spirit. All this data that I put in this slide, you can find in this annual report of European SMEs. I must say, this in this big picture, digital and data-driven SME are a minority, but they are not just businesses that can give more added value to economy, but they can even be powerhouses of innovation, and using data for spot market trends, informed decisions, and excel their competitive arenas. I must say that the fuel of this economy is set in data. companies to make their project, to make their works, they need more and more data day by day, and this data must be the most of updated, have a high granularity, and to be very documented, to be useful to companies. So open data, the concept of open data is very useful for companies nowadays. As you know, open data refers to data that is available, freely usable for everyone. It can be modified or shared by anyone in order to some licenses. These licenses must be open, and they must guarantee the rights of the user and of the producer. This data sets and databases, everything about data are released by government entities, mainly in Europe, like Eurostat or the statistic ecosystem, but also from international organizations or research institutions. About this, one very important portal is Copernicus, that can give data about remote sensing, but there is even independent organization like OpenStreetMap and Wikipedia, and these data that companies they can take from these sources are very important and very used. I must say about OpenStreetMap, it's data, it's like Wikipedia of maps, and this data it's everywhere. I mean, every type of solution that don't use Google Maps or Bing Maps, it's based on OpenStreetMap data. Even big companies use this data, and the same about also other more little initiatives like this. Why open data are ethics? Open data, I must say, is not only just useful, but it's even ethics, because it enhances transparency. That is the first. Is the first point about open data, because they are data that every person can see what there is inside. They can even modify and study in the more deeper way. And the second point in that open data forces equality, because promotes and encourages the sharing knowledge of all type of business or activities. And the third point is about knowledge sharing, because it provides to share this knowledge in common spaces. And the last point about this type of ethics is creativity, because the disponibility of this information can help people to find new type of solutions, or to study new type of things. For SMEs, I found 4 advantages that are very practical, but for me they are very important. And the first point is innovation, because to have, I said before, for us the data is like the new oil. It's something that is very important, and so to have this disponibility it's like an asset that we can use to improve our solutions. The second point is competitiveness, because little company or medium enterprises, they have not the power of the big player, of the big company, and to have this free and open type of information can reduce the competitive gap with this large corporation. I mean, a typical example, I have not all geographical data in Kode, I mean developed and proprietary by Kode, but I can use freely open data about everything in maps, not only because there is OpenStreetMap, but because even there is geo portal of local authorities, of public portals, etc., etc. This is only one example, because there is a lot of other example like data about companies, data about population, economics, everything is available for companies. And the third point is cost reduction, because mainly open data, they are free. So they can avoid, companies can avoid the expensive data collection about some type of data. Talking about always again about geographical data, we can have access on Copernicus data to have all the most important remote sensing data in daily updated. And the last point is trustworthy, because they can help to improve companies' transparency and to show that our solution they are based on based data that can be seen by every person. So even our analytics can be driven in a more clear way, and nothing more. This is my presentation.
Thank you a lot, Andrea, for your amazing presentation. Now, let's move to the Q&A session. Actually, what we do in every episode is that we read the question, and then the speaker answer publicly to this question. But I see that a lot of discussion here in the chat. I saw Juan giving replies to everyone, also Denise, to other people. I mean, that's so impressed by this. So given we have only eight more minutes, I would go to those questions who are that are not answered yet. Okay, so let's scroll the chat now. Okay. Okay, there is just but probably is not an off-topic question, but this is actually an important question to Andrea. How cool your company is? Do you have any open positions?
Who make this question?
Caroline.
Okay, it's not
I don't know if you are looking for foreign people into your.
He was person that I know, and our company is very cool. I mean, we make a lot of different projects. I didn't show in this slide because we had only 10 minutes to explain everything. And mainly our fields more important are about industry, that where we make process control, quality, and predictive maintenance of machines. and computer vision, we work mainly in mobility, like to make GIS solution that use computer vision from the field that catch things like traffic signs, everything like this, or inside logistic warehouse, we can take the dimension of pallet inside the warehouse automatically from one camera put on one transpallet. And we have not open positions, I must say, because we are grow very, very slowly. We found our company, our capital without external money, without investors. So we grow piece by piece. Every year is a single blood drop of our soul that we put in this work. So we have not open position, but you can send your curriculum to our mail, that is jobs at kodesolutions.net. We are very interested in people that now work in generative AI, because it's a field that we have not so much experience. In generative AI, I must say there is a big gap, that it's the access to computer, to hardware and computer, computer power to make our algorithm to go, because there is high costs in this period. If you use one cloud machine, it's a lot of money to put one generative AI algorithm. In our experience, we use algorithms that is more old school, and they work mainly in more little machines. But we are now studying and try to access to free access to supercomputer that European Union is offering.
Okay, so basically you don't have open position right now. However, in the future, you are interested to hire somehow people interested to explore generative AI and this thing. Actually, I do agree with this. This is the present, and this is not probably maybe the future. But I think that we do not have time to read the answered questions, because actually they were answered. So, okay, Omuruni, thank you, everyone. Okay, thanks. So, we actually could discuss this topic for decades, probably. However, this is a webinar where we want to give you just a shot of big data. Therefore, we have to close this session right now. Thank you all for being with us, Denise, Juan, and Andrea. We learned a lot today about data ethics. And this is possible thanks to SoBigData Research Infrastructure. So a big thank to the SoBigData Research Infrastructure for letting me organize this webinar together with Maria Giulia. However, this cycle of webinars does not conclude here. Let me remind you that we have organized one more episode of this webinar journey. Usually, we organize webinars every 3 weeks. This time, it will be in a fortnight. So it will be on the 24th of April, because May 1st is a bank holiday in Italy. So next time, which is the last time for this cycle of webinars, we will also address another important theme related to big data. We will talk about data impact. And I cannot tell you more, but we have involved also next time very outstanding speakers, also involving consulting companies that are very, very eager to present and show many good things about data impact. Of course, the link will be the same. And for those you joined us later today, you can always visit the SoBigData YouTube channel. and watch the video again. If you want, make a like. The recorded video, of course, will be out soon in a couple of days, I think. Well, probably next week. But that's all for now. Thank you all for attending this webinar, and have a lovely rest of the day. We look forward to see you again soon.